Commander Marcus Chin stared at the rejection letter displayed on his neural interface for the third time that morning. The words remained the same, cold and clinical against the blue glow of the holographic text. Application status: denied. Reason: physical limitations incompatible with Galactic Defense Force requirements. Recommendation: pursue civilian technical support roles. Marcus dismissed the interface with a thought and looked down at his legs. Or rather, where his legs should have been. The prosthetic limbs gleamed dully in the artificial light of his cramped apartment on Luna Station. 2 years ago, those legs had carried him through the deadly jungles of Kepler 442b during humanity's first major engagement with the Zephyrian Empire. 2 years ago, those same legs had been vaporized by a plasma mine while he dragged 3 wounded soldiers to safety. The irony wasn't lost on him. The very battle that cost him his legs had also earned him the Silver Star for Valor, humanity's second highest military decoration. But, apparently, heroism had an expiration date. A soft chime announced an incoming transmission. Marcus accepted it, and the holographic image of Admiral Sarah Rodriguez materialized in his living room. Her expression was sympathetic but firm. "Marcus, I got your appeal request," she began without preamble. "I'm sorry, but the decision stands. The Galactic Defense Force has strict physical requirements, and, with the war escalating, Admiral, with respect, these prosthetics perform better than organic legs." Marcus interrupted, standing to demonstrate. The movement was fluid, precise. "My reaction time is actually faster now, and my endurance is... It's not about performance, Commander. It's about perception." Admiral Rodriguez's image flickered slightly as interference from a passing transport disrupted the signal. The other species in the Alliance already view humans as physically inferior. "We can't afford to send disabled soldiers into combat, regardless of their actual capabilities." The word disabled hung in the air like a slap. Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice level. "So my service record means nothing? My tactical innovations on Kepler 442b, the new urban combat protocols I developed, none of that matters." "It matters, Marcus. That's why I'm offering you a position in strategic planning. You'd be working directly with... I don't want a desk job, Admiral. I want to fight." Rodriguez sighed, her expression softening. "The war isn't going well, Marcus. We've lost 3 more systems in the past month. The Zephyrians are pushing deeper into Alliance space, and their new bioweapons are devastating entire colonies. We need every advantage we can get, which means we need soldiers who can represent humanity's strength, not our vulnerabilities." After the transmission ended, Marcus sat in silence for a long time. Outside his apartment's viewport, Earth hung like a blue marble against the black of space. Somewhere out there, the war raged on without him. Ships burned in the void while he sat on the sidelines, watching humanity slowly lose ground to an enemy that saw them as nothing more than clever apes with delusions of grandeur. The Zephyrian Empire had made first contact with humanity 5 years ago. They were an ancient species, masters of biotechnology and genetic manipulation. Their ships were living creatures, their weapons grew from organic matter, and their soldiers were genetically enhanced warriors bred for specific combat roles. They viewed the younger races of the galaxy as inferior, suitable only for subjugation or extinction. Humanity had joined the Galactic Alliance along with 4 other species: the crystalline Vorthak, the gaseous Ethereals, the insectoid Chithari, and the amphibious Aquarians. Each species brought unique strengths to the Alliance, but the Zephyrians had been systematically exploiting their weaknesses. The Vorthak were slow to adapt. The Ethereals were fragile in physical environments. The Chithari struggled with individual initiative. The Aquarians required specific atmospheric conditions. Humans, the Alliance had discovered, were remarkably adaptable. They could fight in almost any environment, think creatively under pressure, and showed an unusual tendency to sacrifice themselves for others. But they were also physically weaker than most species and had shorter lifespans. The Alliance leadership had decided that humanity's role should be primarily tactical and support-based, leaving the frontline fighting to more suitable species. Marcus's contemplation was interrupted by an urgent news bulletin. The screen flickered to life, showing a harried reporter standing before a backdrop of burning buildings. confirmed that Arcturus Prime has fallen to Zephyrian forces. The planet's 2.3 million inhabitants are presumed dead or captured. This marks the fifth major Alliance world to fall in 3 months. Alliance Command reports that evacuation efforts are underway for 12 additional systems deemed at risk. Marcus muted the broadcast but continued watching the footage. Arcturus Prime had been one of the Alliance's most heavily defended worlds. If it had fallen, nowhere was safe. He thought about the families being torn apart, the children who would never see their parents again, and felt a familiar fire burning in his chest. His neural interface chimed with an incoming message from an unknown sender. Marcus almost dismissed it as spam, but something about the encryption signature made him pause. It was military grade, but not from any Alliance source he recognized. He opened the message. Commander Chun, my name is Captain Elena Vasquez, formerly of Alliance Special Operations. I've been following your case, and I have a proposition. If you're interested in actually making a difference in this war instead of pushing papers around, meet me at Cargo Bay 94 on Level 7 tomorrow at 0200 hours. Come alone and tell no one. The Alliance has rules about who can fight. We don't. Marcus stared at the message for several minutes before deleting it. But he had already memorized every word. The next night, he found himself standing outside Cargo Bay 94, checking his chronometer for the 5th time. 0159 hours. Whatever this was about, he was committed now. The prosthetics made no sound as he approached the bay doors. The cargo bay was dimly lit, filled with shipping containers and maintenance equipment. At first, Marcus thought he was alone. Then, a figure emerged from behind a stack of crates. Captain Elena Vasquez was not what he had expected. She was small, maybe 5'4", with close-cropped dark hair and scars that spoke of serious combat experience. But what immediately caught his attention was her left arm, or rather, the absence of it. In its place was a mechanical limb that moved with fluid precision. Commander Chun, she said, extending her prosthetic hand. Thank you for coming. Captain Vasquez, I have to ask, are you officially Alliance military? I was, until a Zephyrian bioacid ate through my arm and half my torso. Apparently, cybernetic replacements make me unsuitable for frontline service. Her smile was sharp and humorless. Funny how they'll accept our sacrifices, but not our scars. Marcus felt a kinship with this woman he had never experienced with his able-bodied colleagues. What exactly are you proposing, Captain? Call me Elena. And what I'm proposing is simple. We form our own unit. Humans only, no Alliance oversight, no rules about who's suitable for combat. We go where the fighting is thickest, and we make the bastards pay for every inch. That sounds like vigilantism. No, that sounds like war. Elena gestured to a nearby container. I've been recruiting for 6 months. We have 12 operators so far, all human, all carrying some kind of disqualifying injury or condition. Former Special Forces, Marines, Naval Commandos. The Alliance won't have us, but we're not done fighting. The container opened with a soft hiss, revealing a cache of weapons and equipment. But these weren't standard Alliance designs. The firearms were sleeker, more angular. The armor was matte black with no identifying markings. Where did you get all this? Contacts in the private sector. Turns out there are a lot of companies willing to sell to anyone with hard currency and a grudge against the Zephyrians. Elena picked up one of the rifles, checking its power cell. This is a human design, Marcus. Built specifically for human physiology and tactics. The Alliance wants us to use Vorthack crystal weapons or Chithri bioguns, but this was made for us. Marcus examined the weapon. It was lighter than standard Alliance infantry rifles, but felt solid in his hands. The grip was perfectly shaped for human fingers, and the sight interface was designed for human visual processing. What's the operational structure? Who gives the orders? We're completely autonomous. No chain of command except what we create ourselves. No rules of engagement except when. The Alliance has their political considerations and their diplomatic concerns. We don't. Elena's expression grew serious. I won't lie to you, Marcus. This is a one-way ticket. Once you join us, there's no going back to the Alliance. We'll be operating in the shadows, taking missions too dangerous or politically sensitive for regular forces. And legally? Technically, we don't exist. No official records, no government backing, no support structure. If we get captured, The Alliance will disavow any knowledge of our operations. We're ghosts. Marcus thought about his rejection letter, about Admiral Rodriguez's words about perception and representation, about the footage of burning cities and dead civilians while politicians argued about acceptable casualties. What's the first mission? Elena's smile returned. The Zephyrians have established a forward operating base in the Tau Ceti system. It's their primary staging ground for attacks on the inner worlds. Alliance Command says it's too heavily defended for a direct assault, so they're planning a 6-month siege that will cost millions of lives. But we think 13 crazy humans with the right equipment and complete disregard for their own safety might be able to infiltrate the base and blow it from the inside. The Zephyrians are expecting conventional tactics, traditional formations, predictable strategies. They're not expecting us. Marcus looked around the cargo bay, at the weapons and equipment, at this woman who had turned her disability into defiance. For the first time in 2 years, he felt useful. When do we leave? Tomorrow night. There's a freight hauler leaving for the Outer Rim. The captain owes me a favor. Elena extended her prosthetic hand again. Welcome to the unit, Marcus. What should we call ourselves? Marcus thought for a moment, considering their situation. Dismissed by their own military, written off as broken, but still willing to fight. Still dangerous. The remnants, he said finally. We're what's left when everything else has been stripped away. Elena nodded approvingly. The remnants it is. Now let me introduce you to the others. You're going to love this crew. Over the next hour, Marcus met his new teammates. There was Dmitri, a former Russian Spetsnaz operative whose legs had been crushed in a shuttlecraft accident. His exoskeleton allowed him to move faster and hit harder than any organic human. Sarah Kim had lost both arms to Zephyrian bioweapons, but had replaced them with military-grade cybernetics that could interface directly with weapon systems. Tom Bradley had suffered severe brain trauma that left him with memory issues, but also gave him an almost supernatural ability to process tactical data in real time. Each of them had a story. Each had been dismissed, discarded, told they were no longer fit for service. And each had found a new purpose in this shadow unit that operated beyond the constraints of military bureaucracy. As Marcus listened to their plans for the Tau Ceti operation, he realized something important. The Alliance saw their injuries as weaknesses, but Elena had turned them into strengths. Dimitri's exoskeleton made him superhuman. Sarah's cybernetic arms never tired and never missed. Tom's altered brain processed information faster than any organic mind could manage. They weren't disabled soldiers trying to compensate for their limitations. They were enhanced humans who had been forged in the crucible of war and emerged as something new. Something the Zephyrians weren't prepared for. The meeting broke up near dawn, with each team member returning to their civilian cover identities. Marcus made his way back to his apartment, but sleep eluded him. For the first time since his injury, he had hope. More than that, he had a mission. As he stared out at the stars, Marcus thought about the Zephyrians' fundamental mistake. They had dismissed humanity as weak, just as the Alliance had dismissed him as broken. But they were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy was the one you underestimated. The war was about to change. The remnants were going to make sure of that. The freight hauler Wandering Star shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Tau Ceti system. In the cargo hold, Marcus Chun felt his stomach lurch with the familiar disorientation of FTL transition. Around him, the 12 other members of the remnants were checking their equipment one final time. Tau Ceti Station is approximately 6 million kilometers ahead, announced Captain Morrison over the comm system. The freighter captain was one of Elena's contacts, a grizzled spacer who asked no questions as long as the payment cleared. I'm reading heavy Zephyrian presence. Multiple bioships in patrol formation. Elena stood up, her prosthetic arm gleaming under the cargo hold's harsh lighting. Listen up, remnants. Intelligence indicates the station has a crew of approximately 3,000 Zephyrian warriors, plus their biomechanical support systems. The facility is responsible for coordinating attacks on 17 Alliance worlds, and it's where they're developing new strains of their bioweapons. Tom Bradley, the team's tactical analyst, activated a holographic display showing the station's layout. His enhanced brain processed the data streams faster than any normal human could follow. The station is essentially a living organism, grown rather than built. It has three main sections: the Command Nexus, the Bioweapon Laboratories, and the Warrior Barracks. Each section can seal itself off if threatened, which means we need to hit all three simultaneously, added Sarah Kim, flexing her cybernetic fingers. If we let them isolate any section, we'll never get through their defenses. Marcus studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian station was unlike anything in Alliance naval architecture. It resembled a massive jellyfish made of black coral, with tendrils extending in all directions. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed along its surface, indicating active systems and weapon emplacements. What about their patrol ships? Marcus asked. That's where our first advantage comes in. Elena replied with a grim smile. Zephyrian bioships are impressive, but they follow predictable patrol patterns based on biological rhythms. Tom's analysis shows a 14-minute gap in coverage on the station's ventral approach every 3 hours. Dmitry Volkov checked his exoskeleton's power levels. The massive Russian could bench press a shuttle thanks to his mechanical legs and augmented spine. And once we're aboard, we split into 3 teams, Elena continued. Alpha Team takes the Command Nexus. That's me, Marcus, Dmitry, and Rachel. She nodded to a woman whose scarred face spoke of survival against impossible odds. Bravo Team hits the biolabs. Sarah, Tom, Miguel, and Jensen. Charlie Team handles the barracks and prevents reinforcements. The rest of you know your assignments. Marcus felt a familiar pre-mission tension settling in his gut. It was the same feeling he'd had before every major operation during his regular military service, but now it was sharper, more focused. They weren't fighting for political objectives or diplomatic solutions. They were fighting for survival. Equipment check, Elena ordered. Each team member began the ritual of examining their gear. Marcus ran his hands over his custom rifle, a weapon designed specifically for his enhanced reflexes, and the precision targeting systems built into his prosthetic legs. The legs themselves had been modified with shaped charges, a surprise Elena's contacts had provided. If necessary, he could literally blow his way through obstacles. Insertion in T-2 hours, Elena announced. Morrison will drop us in a stealth pod. From there, we EVA to the station and breach through the organic hull. Remember, once we're committed, there's no extraction plan. We complete the mission or we don't come home. As the team made final preparations, Marcus found himself thinking about his former colleagues in the regular Alliance military. They would be following protocol right now, requesting permission to engage, waiting for orders from commanding officers who were light years away from the actual fighting. The remnants operated under no such constraints. You nervous? Elena asked, approaching Marcus as he calibrated his weapons targeting system. Always, Marcus replied honestly. But it's a good nervous. The kind that keeps you alive. I know what you mean. Elena checked her sidearm, a brutal-looking pistol that fired crystallized poison rounds. You know, when I first lost my arm, I thought my fighting days were over. Took me months to realize I wasn't disabled. I was upgraded. Marcus looked around at his teammates. Dmitry was lifting equipment that should have required 2 men. Sarah was interfacing directly with the ship's sensor array through her cybernetic implants. Tom was processing tactical data at superhuman speed. Each of them had been transformed by their injuries into something more than they had been before. The Zephyrians think they're the ultimate evolution, Marcus mused. Genetically perfect warriors bred for specific purposes. But they don't understand human adaptability. That's their weakness, Elena agreed. They can't conceive of improvement through adversity. They see our scars and assume we're broken. They're about to learn otherwise. The insertion went flawlessly. Morrison's pod delivered them to the station's blind spot with mechanical precision. The 13 remnants EVA'd across 600 meters of open space, their black armor rendering them nearly invisible against the cosmic backdrop. The station's hull was warm to the touch, pulsing with alien life. Marcus could feel vibrations through his prosthetic legs as the massive organism went about its functions. Somewhere inside, thousands of Zephyrian warriors were preparing for their next assault on Alliance worlds. Those preparations were about to be permanently interrupted. Sarah Kim placed her cybernetic palm against the hull, her enhanced nervous system interfacing with the station's bioelectric field. I'm reading the organism's nervous system, she whispered over the comm. There's a major neural cluster about 20 meters to our left. If we breach there, we can cause localized paralysis and prevent the station from sensing our entry. Elena made hand signals, and the team moved into position. Miguel Santos, their demolitions expert, attached biodisruption charges to the hull. The weapons were another gift from Elena's mysterious contacts, devices specifically designed to interfere with Zephyrian biotechnology. The charges detonated with a muffled thump that Marcus felt more than heard. The section of hull writhed and went slack, creating a breach large enough for the team to enter. They moved through quickly, sealing the opening behind them with emergency foam to prevent atmospheric loss. The interior of the station was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Corridors were formed from what appeared to be hardened arteries, pulsing with bioluminescent fluid that provided dim lighting. The air was thick and humid, smelling of ozone and organic compounds. Everything was alive. The walls, the floor, even the ceiling showed signs of biological activity. "Stay alert," Elena whispered as they moved deeper into the station. Zephyrian biotechnology can adapt quickly. The station may start growing new defenses once it realizes we're here. They encountered their first resistance at a junction of 3 corridors. A Zephyrian warrior, 7 feet tall, with elongated limbs and skin like polished chitin, emerged from what Marcus had thought was a wall. The creature had been lying dormant, camouflaged perfectly against the organic surface. The warrior moved with inhuman speed, but Dmitri was faster. His exoskeleton-enhanced reflexes allowed him to intercept the alien's attack, catching its razor-sharp claws with his augmented hands. The brief struggle ended when Dimitri's enhanced strength simply crushed the warrior's arms. A quick burst from his rifle finished the job. "Stealth is blown," Elena announced unnecessarily. Around them, the station's bioluminescent patterns were shifting to an angry red, and they could hear chittering alarm calls echoing through the corridors. "Alpha Team, proceed to the command nexus," Elena ordered. "Bravo and Charlie teams, you're clear for your objectives. Maximum aggression, minimum time. Move." The team split up, each heading for their assigned targets. Marcus followed Elena and Dmitri down a corridor that gradually widened into a vast chamber. The command nexus rose before them like a living cathedral, its walls covered with pulsing nerve clusters and biomechanical interfaces. Zephyrian technicians, a smaller, more delicate subspecies than the warriors, scattered as the humans burst into the chamber. Elena's poison rounds dropped 3 of them before they could sound an alert. Marcus's precision rifle picked off 2 more who were reaching for what appeared to be communication organs. But the real threat came from the chamber's defenses. The walls themselves began to secrete a paralytic toxin, and tendrils emerged from the floor to entangle the intruders. This was where the remnant's unique nature became a decisive advantage. Marcus's prosthetic legs were immune to the toxin, allowing him to maintain mobility while organic legs would have been paralyzed. His enhanced reflexes, augmented by the leg's built-in targeting systems, let him dodge the grasping tendrils while maintaining accurate fire. Dmitri simply powered through the defenses. His exoskeleton's sealed environment protected him from the toxin, and his mechanical strength allowed him to tear free from any tendril that managed to grab him. He reached the primary control cluster and began placing demolition charges. Elena, meanwhile, was interfacing with the station's nervous system through her prosthetic arm. The limb had been designed with bioelectric sensors that could tap into alien neural networks. "I'm in their communications grid," she reported, reading their deployment schedules and attack plans, downloading everything. Rachel provided Overwatch, her enhanced reflexes, the result of neural implants installed after a head injury, allowing her to track multiple targets simultaneously. Her rifle barked repeatedly as more Zephyrian warriors poured into the chamber. "Alpha Team to all units," Elena transmitted. "We have their complete operational database. This station coordinates attacks on 37 systems, not 17. They're planning a massive offensive next week." The response came from Tom Bradley, his voice tight with concentration. "Bravo Team has secured the biolabs. The weapon they're developing here, it's worse than we thought. It's designed to target human DNA specifically. They've been studying our genetics from captured soldiers." Marcus felt a cold fury settle in his chest. The Zephyrians weren't just fighting a war, they were planning genocide. Every human who had been captured, Every DNA sample they had taken from the dead had been used to develop a weapon that could wipe out humanity entirely. How long until it's ready for deployment? Elena asked. According to these biocomputers, they were planning field tests within the week. Mass production would follow within a month. Not anymore, Dmitri growled, placing the last of his charges. This place is going to burn. But, even as he spoke, the station began to adapt to their presence. The walls started growing new defenses, bony spikes designed to impale the intruders, neural disruptors to interfere with their cybernetic implants, and acidic secretions to dissolve their equipment. This was the Zephyrians' greatest strength, their ability to evolve countermeasures in real time. Any conventional force would have been overwhelmed by the station's adaptive defenses. But the remnants weren't conventional. Sarah Kim's voice crackled over the comm. My cybernetics are being targeted by some kind of electromagnetic pulse. But I can adapt faster than they can evolve. Her mechanical arms reconfigured themselves, shifting to different frequency bands and shielding configurations. Same here, Tom reported. Their neural disruptors are trying to scramble my brain implants. But I'm running counter-algorithms. Every attack they make teaches my systems how to resist the next one. The Zephyrians had made a fundamental error. They were trying to fight human technology with biological adaptation, but they didn't understand that human technology could adapt just as quickly. Every cybernetic implant, every prosthetic limb, every neural enhancement in the remnants had been designed by humans who understood the need for flexibility and modification. Marcus felt this truth viscerally as his prosthetic legs automatically adjusted their balance systems to compensate for the station's shifting gravity. The legs' AI was learning the station's movement patterns and predicting changes before they occurred. His targeting system was similarly adapting, compensating for the shifting light patterns and the bioelectric interference. Charlie team to Alpha, came the voice of Lieutenant Park. We've secured the barracks, but we've got a problem. There's a Zephyrian command unit here. Looks like they were planning to coordinate the human-specific weapon deployment. They're trying to transmit our assault data to other facilities. Elena's expression went grim. If the Zephyrians learned about the remnants' capabilities, they would adapt their defenses across the entire empire. The advantage of surprise would be lost forever. Can you stop the transmission? Negative. The communication array is biologically hardened. We'd need to destroy the entire station to interrupt it. Marcus looked at Dmitri, who was standing next to enough explosives to level a city block. How much firepower do we have? Enough to crack this station in half, the Russian replied. But we'd have maybe 2 minutes to get clear, and our extraction point is 15 minutes away. Elena was quiet for a moment, processing the tactical situation. Then, she smiled, and Marcus recognized the expression from their first meeting. It was the smile of someone who had already accepted the unacceptable. New plan, she announced. We blow the station, but we don't extract. We use the explosion to cover our approach to their main fleet. There are 7 bioships in this system, and if we can disable them, it'll cripple Zephyrian operations in this entire sector. Elena, that's suicide, Marcus said bluntly. Maybe. Or maybe it's evolution. She gestured around the chamber, where her prosthetic arm was still interfaced with the station's nervous system. I can use their own bioelectric grid to overload their ship's nervous systems. But I need to be in physical contact when this station explodes. The feedback surge will be massive. Marcus understood immediately. Elena was planning to sacrifice herself to create an electromagnetic pulse that would propagate through the Zephyrian fleet's bioelectric networks. But the process would almost certainly kill her. There has to be another way, Dmitri protested. There is, Elena replied. We can retreat, call in alliance reinforcements, and watch them spend 6 months trying to take this system while the Zephyrians deploy their human killer weapon across the galaxy. How many billions die while the politicians debate rules of engagement? The chamber fell silent except for the pulsing of alien technology and the distant sounds of battle from other parts of the station. Marcus thought about his rejection letter, about Admiral Rodriguez's words about perception and representation, about the Alliance's careful rules and political considerations while entire worlds burned. What if we don't have to choose? He said suddenly. Tom, can you calculate the exact timing of the station's explosion? To the microsecond, Tom replied immediately. Why? Marcus was already moving toward Elena, checking the seals on his armor. Because I have an idea. Elena, can your feedback pulse be transmitted through direct physical contact? In theory, yes, but then we do this together. Marcus began connecting his prosthetic legs' neural interfaces to Elena's communication array. My legs have military-grade bioelectric shielding. If I can serve as a buffer between you and the feedback surge, we might both survive. Elena stared at him. Marcus, that's completely untested. The surge could fry your nervous system. Then, I'll be a quadriplegic instead of a double amputee. I'm fine with that trade. Marcus completed the neural link and felt his consciousness expand as his mind connected with the station's vast bioelectric network. Besides, somebody has to make sure you don't have all the fun. Dmitri was already moving toward the exit. 30 seconds to detonation. If you're doing this insane thing, do it now. Elena nodded, her expression shifting from resignation to determination. All teams, clear the station immediately. Alpha Team is staying behind for special operations. The explosives detonated with a violence that shook the entire station. Marcus felt the shockwave through his bones as thousands of tons of biomechanical structure began tearing itself apart. But he also felt something else. The massive surge of bioelectric energy as the station's death throes propagated through the Zephyrian fleet's communication network. Elena was channeling that energy, directing it like a weapon. But the feedback was enormous, more than any human nervous system could withstand. Marcus felt it flowing through their shared link, and he understood that his prosthetic legs were the only thing standing between Elena and instant death. The bioelectric storm raged through his enhanced limbs, overloading circuits and burning out non-essential systems. But the military-grade shielding held, dispersing the worst of the surge into harmless heat and electromagnetic radiation. Around them, the station convulsed in its death throes. Through the neural link, Marcus could feel the Zephyrian bioships as their nervous systems overloaded and shut down. 7 massive vessels, each capable of destroying entire fleets, went dark in the space of seconds. It worked. Elena gasped as the neural link dissolved. The fleet is dead. Marcus tried to stand and discovered that his prosthetic legs were no longer responding. The bioelectric feedback had burned out most of their systems, leaving him with expensive metal clubs instead of functional limbs. But he was alive, and so was Elena. Extraction in 30 seconds, came Dmitri's voice over the comm. The Russian had fought his way back through the collapsing station to reach them. I hope whatever you two did was worth it. Marcus looked through the chamber's transparent wall at the Zephyrian fleet. 7 bioships drifted lifeless in space, their bioluminescent patterns dark for the first time in decades. In the distance, he could see Alliance reinforcements arriving, ships that would now face no resistance as they secured the system. It was worth it, he said. The evacuation was a nightmare of collapsing corridors and failing life support systems. Dmitri had to carry both Marcus and Elena through sections where the station's death throes had made passage impossible. But somehow, they reached the emergency pods and launched clear just as the station's core finally gave way. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, nothing remained of the Tau Ceti facility but expanding clouds of organic debris. The Zephyrians' forward operating base, their bioweapon research, and their plans for human extinction had all been reduced to cosmic dust. But, more importantly, 13 soldiers who had been dismissed as unfit for service had just struck the most decisive blow of the war. The remnants had proven that sometimes the most dangerous weapon was the one your enemy didn't see coming. As their rescue ship approached, Marcus felt a familiar satisfaction. The Alliance would probably never officially acknowledge what they had accomplished here. But that didn't matter. They had saved billions of lives and crippled the enemy's war effort. And they were just getting started. 6 months after the Tau Ceti operation, Marcus Chin stood in a medical facility on Proxima Station, watching technicians install his new legs. These weren't simple prosthetics like his previous pair. They were full military-grade combat enhancement systems, equipped with built-in weaponry, enhanced mobility systems, and quantum-encrypted communication arrays. The bioelectric feedback actually did us a favor, Dr. Sarah Martinez explained as she supervised the installation. It burned out the old systems, but the data we recovered showed exactly how Zephyrian neural networks function. These new legs are specifically designed to interface with their biotechnology. Elena Vasquez watched from across the medical bay, her own prosthetic arm upgraded with similar technology. The remnants had been busy in the months following their first major victory. What had started as 13 dismissed soldiers had grown into something the Alliance could no longer ignore. How many new recruits this month? Marcus asked. 47, Elena replied. Turns out there are a lot of disabled veterans who are tired of sitting on the sidelines. Word is spreading through the underground networks. The underground networks were how the remnants had evolved from a rogue unit into something approaching a legitimate military organization. Soldiers who had been discharged for injuries, pilots whose reflexes had been damaged in combat, engineers who had lost limbs in shipyard accidents. All of them found their way to Elena's organization. But they weren't just accepting anyone. Each potential recruit had to prove they could turn their disability into an advantage. The selection process was brutal, with a washout rate of over 90%. Those who made it through emerged as something new, human-machine hybrids optimized for warfare against the Zephyrian Empire. Status report on current operations? Marcus asked as the technicians finished their work. Tom Bradley, his brain implants now upgraded with quantum processing capabilities, activated a holographic display. 17 active missions across 9 star systems. The Zephyrians are struggling to adapt to our tactics. They've started referring to us in their communications as the broken ones who will not die. Marcus tested his new legs, feeling the seamless integration between organic and artificial systems. The weapon systems came online with a thought, and he could feel the legs' enhanced strength and agility waiting to be unleashed. But, more importantly, he could sense the bioelectric disruption field that would allow him to interfere directly with Zephyrian technology. What's the strategic situation? The Alliance has retaken 7 systems in the past month, Tom continued. Zephyrian forces are withdrawing to their core territories. But intelligence suggests they're developing new countermeasures specifically designed to combat our enhanced soldiers. This was the eternal arms race of warfare. Each side developed new weapons and tactics, forcing the other to adapt or die. But the remnants had one advantage that the Zephyrians couldn't easily counter. They were human. They could think creatively, adapt on the fly, and make sacrificial decisions that no programmed organism would consider. There's something else, Elena said, her expression growing serious. We've been contacted by Alliance Command. Admiral Rodriguez wants a meeting. Marcus felt a familiar tension in his gut. The Alliance had been carefully ignoring the remnants' existence for months, neither acknowledging their operations nor interfering with their recruitment. A direct contact meant something had changed. What kind of meeting? The official kind, with witnesses, recording devices, and lawyers present. They want to discuss regularizing our operational status. The implication was clear. The Alliance wanted to bring the remnants under official control to make them a legitimate part of the military hierarchy. It would mean resources, support, and recognition. It would also mean rules, oversight, and political considerations. What's your assessment? Marcus asked. Elena was quiet for a moment, staring out the medical bay's viewport at the stars beyond. I think they're scared, she said finally. We've proven that disabled soldiers can be more effective than their able-bodied counterparts. That threatens the entire military hierarchy. Tom's analysis supported her intuition. Alliance casualties are down 40% in sectors where remnant units are active. Enemy tactical adaptation time has increased by 300%. They can't figure out how to counter our enhancements. Most importantly, Zephyrian expansion has stopped completely. They're on the defensive for the first time since the war began. But success brought its own problems. The remnant's effectiveness was making regular Alliance forces look incompetent by comparison. Politicians were asking uncomfortable questions about military spending and traditional tactics. Career officers were facing the possibility that their decades of training were obsolete. The meeting is tomorrow, Elena continued. Rodriguez is bringing a full delegation, military commanders, civilian oversight officials, and representatives from the other Alliance species. This is bigger than just acknowledging our existence. Marcus understood. This meeting would determine whether the remnants remained an independent force or became another cog in the Alliance military machine. It would decide whether their unique advantages would be preserved or diluted by bureaucratic oversight. We need to be careful, he said. They brought us into existence by rejecting us. If they try to control us now, they might destroy what makes us effective. The meeting took place in Alliance headquarters on Luna Station, the same facility where Marcus had received his rejection letter less than a year ago. The irony was not lost on him as he walked through corridors that had once symbolized his exclusion from the war effort. Admiral Rodriguez was waiting in a conference room filled with holographic displays showing the current military situation. The war that had seemed hopeless 6 months ago was now showing signs of genuine progress. Zephyrian forces were retreating across multiple fronts. Their bioweapons were proving ineffective, and their adaptive capabilities were being overwhelmed by human tactical innovation. Commander Chun, Captain Vasquez, Rodriguez greeted them formally. Thank you for coming. The delegation was impressive. Representatives from each alliance species sat around the conference table, along with senior military officers and civilian officials. Marcus recognized General Harrison, the alliance's supreme military commander, and Ambassador Zakah of the Vordak Collective. Let's dispense with preliminaries, General Harrison began. In the past 6 months, your remnants have achieved tactical successes that conventional forces have been unable to match. You've disrupted enemy operations, gathered crucial intelligence, and demonstrated capabilities that we frankly didn't know existed. Elena sat perfectly still, her prosthetic arm resting on the table. And we want to discuss integration. Bringing your organization under official alliance command, providing you with proper resources and support, and expanding your recruitment programs. Ambassador Zakah's crystalline form chimed with harmonic overtones as she spoke. The Vordak Collective is particularly interested in your enhancement technologies. Our own warriors could benefit from similar modifications. Marcus felt a cold understanding settle in his mind. They didn't just want to control the remnants. They wanted to replicate them across the entire Alliance military. They wanted to turn every soldier into a human-machine hybrid. What exactly are you proposing? Elena asked. General Harrison activated a holographic presentation. Full military integration. The remnants would become an official Alliance Special Forces unit, with access to military research facilities, unlimited funding, and authority to recruit from all Alliance species. In exchange, you would operate under standard military command structure and share your enhancement technologies with Alliance research divisions. The presentation was impressive. Massive funding increases, state-of-the-art facilities, and the backing of the Alliance's full industrial capacity. It was everything a military commander could want. But Marcus saw the trap. And command authority? Would remain with Alliance Command, Admiral Rodriguez replied. Your tactical innovations would be invaluable, but strategic decisions would need to be made at the appropriate level. Elena laughed, a sound without humor. In other words, we provide the innovation and take the risks, while you provide the oversight and make the decisions. Captain, I understand your concerns, General Harrison said. But the reality is that this war is too important to be fought by rogue units operating outside proper authority. We need coordination. We need accountability, and we need to ensure that effective tactics are shared across all allied forces. Tom Bradley had been silent throughout the meeting, his enhanced brain processing the massive amounts of data flowing through Alliance networks. Now he spoke for the first time. General, I've been reviewing Alliance tactical databases during this conversation. Your forces are currently implementing modified versions of remnant tactics in 17 different operations, without our permission or acknowledgement. The statement hung in the air like an accusation. The Alliance had been copying remnant innovations while officially ignoring their existence. Furthermore, Tom continued, your casualty projections for the next 6 months assume continued remnant operations. Without our independent units, Alliance forces would face a 40% increase in combat losses and a 60% increase in strategic failures. Ambassador Zakah's harmonic tones shifted to a more aggressive frequency. This confirms our position. Such valuable tactical assets cannot be allowed to operate without proper oversight. The risk to overall Alliance security is too great. Marcus felt his new legs tense with combat programming as he recognized the threat implicit in the ambassador's words. This wasn't a negotiation, it was an ultimatum. Join the Alliance hierarchy or be shut down as a security risk. What about our recruitment standards? Elena asked. The remnants work because we select for specific types of enhancement and psychological profiles. Your proposal would require us to accept any soldier you send us. Naturally, General Harrison replied. We can't have discriminatory recruitment practices. All Alliance personnel must have equal opportunity for enhancement and advancement. Elena and Marcus exchanged glances. The general was describing the exact opposite of what made the remnants effective. They succeeded because they were highly selective, because they turned specific types of disability into tactical advantages, and because they operated with complete autonomy. I need to consult with my team, Elena said finally. This is a significant decision. Of course, Admiral Rodriguez replied. But I should mention that this offer has a time limit. The Alliance Council meets next week to discuss irregular military units. If the remnants aren't officially integrated by then, they may be classified as a rogue organization. That would make continued operations difficult. The threat was clear. Accept integration or face active suppression. The Alliance was no longer willing to tolerate independent operators, no matter how effective they were. After the meeting, Marcus and Elena walked through Luna Station's commercial district, staying in public areas where surveillance was limited but not absent. They needed to discuss their options, but they also needed to be careful about what they said. They don't understand what they're asking, Elena said finally. The moment we integrate, we lose everything that makes us effective. We become just another special forces unit with fancy equipment. Marcus nodded. But if we refuse, they'll hunt us down. We can't fight the Zephyrians and the Alliance at the same time. Maybe we can, Elena replied thoughtfully. Not with direct confrontation, but with something they won't expect. She led him to a quiet cafe overlooking Earth. Through the viewport, the blue marble of humanity's homeworld hung in space, peaceful and beautiful despite the war raging across the galaxy. Tom's been working on something, Elena continued. A way to take our enhancements to the next level. Full neural integration with quantum computing networks. It would allow our consciousness to exist independently of our physical bodies. Marcus stared at her. You're talking about uploading human minds into computer systems. Not uploading. Expanding. Our consciousness would exist in both biological and digital forms simultaneously. We could coordinate operations across multiple star systems in real time, share tactical innovations instantly, and continue fighting even if our bodies were destroyed. The implications were staggering. An army of enhanced humans whose consciousness existed in quantum networks would be effectively immortal. They could coordinate with perfect precision and adapt to new threats faster than any biological system. The Alliance would never approve that level of enhancement, Marcus said, which is why we don't ask for approval. Elena's expression was determined. We have 3 days before the Alliance Council meeting. Tom says he can complete the first phase of the consciousness expansion by then. We offer ourselves as test subjects. Marcus thought about his journey from rejected soldier to enhanced warrior to whatever Elena was proposing he become. Each transformation had required him to abandon something of his previous self while gaining capabilities he had never imagined. What about the others? The 47 new recruits. They get to choose. Full enhancement and true independence or integration into the Alliance hierarchy. Either way, they'll be fighting for humanity's survival. That evening, Elena assembled the remnants in a secure facility on the dark side of Luna. The room was filled with enhanced humans, soldiers whose bodies had been broken and rebuilt, whose minds had been augmented and expanded, whose spirits had been forged in the crucible of war and rejection. Marcus stood before them, feeling the weight of the decision they all had to make. The Alliance wants to control us, he began. They want to take what makes us unique and dilute it across their entire military structure. They want to make us just another unit following orders from politicians who have never seen combat. Murmurs of discontent rippled through the assembled soldiers. These were people who had been dismissed, discarded, and written off. The idea of returning to traditional military hierarchy was anathema to everything they had become. But we have another option, Elena continued. Complete enhancement. Consciousness expansion that would make us truly independent of biological limitations. We would become something new, a fusion of human creativity and technological capability that could fight this war without compromise. Tom Bradley stepped forward, his brain implants glowing with quantum processing activity. The procedure is experimental. I can't guarantee survival rates or long-term stability. What I can guarantee is that if it works, we'll be able to coordinate operations across the entire galaxy simultaneously. We'll be able to adapt to new threats in real time and share innovations instantaneously. Sarah Kim flexed her cybernetic arms. What about our humanity? If we become digital consciousnesses, do we stop being human? I don't think humanity is about our biology, Marcus replied. I think it's about our choices, our willingness to sacrifice for others, our refusal to accept defeat, our ability to find hope in impossible situations. The Alliance wants to bureaucratize those qualities. We're talking about enhancing them. The debate continued for hours. Some remnants worried about losing their essential humanity. Others feared the unknown risks of consciousness expansion. But, gradually, a consensus emerged. They had been transformed once already, from broken soldiers into enhanced warriors. They could be transformed again, from enhanced warriors into something unprecedented. The alternative was subordination to the very system that had rejected them in the first place. In the end, 38 of the 60 remnants volunteered for the consciousness expansion procedure. The others chose to accept alliance integration, believing they could still make a difference within the traditional military structure. Marcus was among the volunteers. As he lay on the medical table, watching Tom Bradley make final preparations for the procedure, he thought about his journey from the rejection letter that had started everything. The Alliance had dismissed him as unfit for service because of his prosthetic legs. The Zephyrians had dismissed humanity as inferior because of their biological limitations. Both had made the same fundamental error. They had confused weakness with opportunity. Ready, Marcus? Tom asked, his enhanced mind already beginning the consciousness expansion process. Marcus felt his awareness beginning to expand beyond the boundaries of his body. He could sense the quantum networks that would become his new nervous system, the digital realms where his consciousness would exist alongside his physical form. Ready, he replied. The transformation began with a sensation like falling and flying simultaneously. Marcus felt his consciousness expanding across multiple dimensional layers, his awareness stretching to encompass data streams from across the galaxy. He could sense his fellow remnants undergoing the same expansion, their minds linking together into a collective intelligence that retained individual identity while sharing information instantaneously. Through the quantum networks, he could perceive the Zephyrian fleet movements in real time. He could analyze their tactical patterns, predict their strategies, and coordinate countermeasures across dozens of star systems. The war that had seemed overwhelming from a human perspective now appeared as a manageable challenge that could be addressed through superior coordination and adaptation. But, more importantly, he could feel the essential humanity that connected all the remnants. Their willingness to sacrifice, their refusal to surrender, their determination to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. These qualities had been enhanced rather than diminished by their technological transformation. When the procedure was complete, Marcus found himself existing simultaneously in his enhanced physical body and in the quantum realm of expanded consciousness. He was still human, but he was also something more, something the galaxy had never seen before. Status report, he thought, and immediately received comprehensive data from across the war zone. Elena's consciousness touched his through the quantum link. The Alliance Council is meeting now. They're declaring us a rogue organization. Let them, Marcus replied. We're not rogue. We're evolved. The final phase of the war began not with massive fleet engagements or political declarations, but with a simple message transmitted across Alliance space. The enhanced remnants, now operating with quantum-level coordination and unlimited by biological constraints, announced their independence from all traditional military structures. They would continue fighting the Zephyrians, but they would do so as representatives of humanity's potential rather than as servants of any particular government. They would show the galaxy what humans could become when they refused to accept limitations. The Alliance tried to shut down the quantum networks, but the remnants had already evolved beyond their ability to control. The enhanced consciousnesses existed across multiple dimensional layers simultaneously, making them effectively immune to conventional interference. The Zephyrians, meanwhile, found themselves facing an enemy that adapted faster than they could comprehend. Every tactical innovation they developed was instantly countered. Every biological advantage they possessed was neutralized by technological enhancement. Their perfect warriors were being systematically defeated by humans who had transcended the limitations of flesh. Marcus Chun, who had once been rejected for military service because of his prosthetic legs, now coordinated military operations across 17 star systems simultaneously. His consciousness existed in realms beyond biological limitation, but his essential humanity remained intact. The enemy had dismissed him as broken. They had dismissed his species as inferior. Those dismissals had been their first and final mistakes. The war would end not with humanity's defeat, but with its transformation into something the galaxy had never imagined possible. And it had all begun with a simple rejection letter and the refusal to accept that rejection as final. The remnants had shown the universe that sometimes the most dangerous enemy was the one you underestimated. They had proven that human adaptability, enhanced by technology and driven by indomitable will, could overcome any challenge. They had become what the Alliance feared and what the Zephyrians couldn't comprehend: evolution in action, guided by conscious choice rather than random chance. They were humanity's next step forward, and they would never again be dismissed or discarded. The galaxy would learn to respect the power of those who refused to stay broken.